Hello, and welcome to the GPCA Podcast. My name is Dalal Alhooli, a business monitoring and planning analyst from petrochemical industries company Kuwait, also a member of the GPCA Youth Council. Today we're coming to you from the 18th Annual GPCA Forum, hosted for the first time in the beautiful city of Muscat, Oman. I'm thrilled to be joined with Mais Haddadin Finn, Global Sustainability Lead at NexantECA. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Dalal. It's my pleasure to be here.
So I'm going to start with a reflection. As we come to the end of 2024, I'd love to get your perspective on where we stand today. What is the assessment of the state of the chemical industry in Europe and also globally?
Thank you. That's a really good question to start with, actually. Our industry is under immense pressure, or has been in 2024 under immense pressure. There were a lot of evolving regulations changing during the 2024. There's also a pressure to kind of meet the commitments that the industry has been stating, but at the same time stay prosperous. And the industry itself would like to play an enabling role. We want to be part of the solution going forward for the sustainable future. And hence, the fact is we need a strategic way forward with a fact-based approach. Why is that? Because as an industry, we're such a complex industry. It's inherent in us that we have interconnectedness between our value chains. So simple solutions will not move us forward. And hence the 2024 was kind of an experimental year for that, where we're working together, trying different approaches to move forward, to achieve what we promised to achieve, and beyond that, but at the same time, stay sustainable and prosperous.
All right, so I want to build more on that actually, and touching more and asking you on what are some of the key trends that shape the landscape this year?
If I reflect on that, business as usual is really not an option. And so the key trends that kind of fed into that, where we as an industry saw the need and we took the lead area in terms of that, we started coming together. We saw an significant increase in global and regional associations and industry bodies taking the kind of the strategic step forward. We also saw the capital markets responding to that. There's an increased interest in investing in low carbon emitting technologies, in kind of sustainable solutions, coming again together in partnership. The end consumer at the same time, the organization that represents end consumers of our industry are coming with us to the table to kind of find solutions, coming together to address these challenges. In terms of the hot topics, if I may call it that we saw in the market, it addresses it in three different buckets, I may say. We have, if you look at, we have ones that are around a greater interest in what I would call synthetic fuels and SAF, or the sustainable aviation fuels. There was a greater interest this year in chemical recycling and in pyrolysis in particular. But also there was, we could see that a continued trend from 2023 in hydrogen and its derivatives, but all of which support that the industry is keen to find industrial scale solutions that can help us still maintain our position in the market, but also achieve a sustainable future and carbon neutrality overall.
So touching more on the interest in investing in such sustainable solutions, we've seen an increase in demand for recycling plastic feedstock as well. So how competitive is the recycled plastic market currently? And what are some of the barriers to its actual growth?
Thank you for that question. And it's an important question because we see a lot of misunderstanding in the market. This market is heavily segmented. You have the market of low quality, high volumes, where basically there's a low price, low value in it, and oversupplied.
Yeah.
But the ones where you have high quality, very similar to virgin polymer of chemical recyclates, in that space, it's about finding the right feedstock. Accessing the right feedstock is key. The chemical recycling industry or technologies is still not mature. There's a lot of development in it. So some technologies are sensitive to the type of feedstock that's available. And we hear this, like, there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of plastic waste. But in reality, accessible feedstock for these technologies and having the ecosystem or the infrastructure that helps us access such feedstocks is not yet available. And there's also regulation risk for our industry because pyrolysis, for example, is not yet looked at or is being decided. Is it chemical recycling or is it not? There's the whole closed loop, open loop. So there's a lot of questions that need to be addressed to put this industry together. And it's a necessity if we want to achieve sustainable future. It's part of the puzzle where we can move forward towards carbon neutrality.
Yeah, I'm actually so glad that you touched on regulations. You recently released a paper on the impact of CBAM regulations on the GCC, specifically on the GCC producers. So can you tell us more about the regulations, what they constitute of, and how they're coming into force?
Yeah, definitely. Again, a very good question. Because CBAM is one of those powerful policy tools that's heavily misunderstood in the market. And the secret is in the name. It's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. It's about addressing the carbon leakage that could potentially happen. So in the European Union, there's an EU ETS, there's a price for your carbon, and the total aim of having a CBAM is basically to level the playing field between European producers and producers in other regions, including the GCC. But for the GCC producers, especially the ones with newer assets, with low carbon, technologies, emitting technologies, these are the ones who will have an advantage actually because of CBAM.
Yeah. Because
CBAM ultimately will encourage greener technologies and it will discourage and prevent high intensity kind of industry or to kind of enter those type of markets. And by the way, it's not just the EU that's looking at that. Now we see the wider globally that people are starting to look at imposing carbon tax on their producer, but also building these systems or mechanisms to stop carbon leakage on their borders.
So basically, regulations are forcing those innovations to come into actions, basically.
They're supporting that. And they're an important tool, as we heard today from, Ilham Qadri and from the DAO CEO. They both emphasize that there's a need for the regulator to work with the industry because they're on the same side.
Exactly, yeah. Opposite sides. I'd like to build more on your insights that you've just provided. I want to ask you, what can regional producers actually do in order to prepare for the impending changes and comply with regulations?
It's simply looking at understanding our own value chains. It's looking also beyond just my boundaries, because regulations like CBAM, where we had, the first sectors pass by it, enforces the producer to look at their supply chain or value chain upstream. And it's about really understanding where is my most emitting and reducing that, finding the low carbon technologies and investing in that. It's about also understanding circularity and finding alternative feedstocks to complement. I'm not saying choose one or the other. Finding hubs, industrial hubs where we can actually build networks for carbon capture and storage. It's about thinking or changing our business models from limitations to our boundaries to connection along our value chain and the transparency along that. That will help us all and help the regional producers achieve their own commitments to the market, to their regulators, to their countries, to their regions, but also to their consumer.
Yeah, so as these regulations evolve, it is clear that 2025 will bring both opportunities and challenges. So looking into the future, what do you expect 2025 hold for the GCC, specifically for the GCC producers and the chemical industry globally?
There's a definite uncertainty in the air. I mean, yes, I would say that's the theme. There's more gray areas to explore, because there's a clear increased capacity in China, other Asian countries, as well as the US. You're right. So there's that threat, but there's also, as I mentioned earlier, regulations are shifting from looking at assets to value chain. So I become responsible for my value chain. What's my embedded emission in my product? And I'm responsible for choosing my coalitions, my partnerships, who I'm engaged with. There are going to be territories in the market, especially if you look at the sustainable aviation fuel, where the customer will become partner with the producer to access these spaces, so they can guarantee certain volumes that they need to meet their commitments. There's also going to be, again, a lot of focus on defining the space of low carbon footprint chemicals. What does that even mean? There's no alignment in the market on it. What does my delta carbon intensity mean for me? I think the word for the future or 2025 would be scenario planning, advocacy pieces, and industry coming together with a fact-based approach, so they can go together to the regulator, to the financial sector as one voice, that we as a chemical industry are enabling the sustainable future. We're not the enemy of it. And I think that's a very important message that we need to take forward 2025.
I'd like to shift away from the industry trends now and talk about the people who actually drive the industry. What is the importance of including and empowering female leaders in the workforce?
I think that's a brilliant question and very much needed. And it's beyond just female leaders. I'm a woman and a mother myself of two. But I think what's needed is diversity in our workplace. Like that diversity of thinking, diversity of who comes around the table and discusses the issue. The different perspectives are needed for these difficult questions to address and the challenges we are facing. We need to build more communities and common grounds and come together holistically to address these challenges. And I think that's where the strength of the diverse workforce comes in. And I'm someone who worked in different sectors. So I've worked in private sector as producer. Then I worked in actually innovation. And then I've worked in economic growth with governments. Then I've worked with non-governmental organization, worked in the financial sector, and eventually ended up where I'm now at advisory. But building on all these skill sets that I've built in these kind of 9 different countries, working alongside incredible, diverse nations and people. And the more you bring into the table of diversity, the easier it is to address these hard challenges that we need to address as an industry.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the idea of diversity goes beyond gender. There's actually diversity in skills, as you just mentioned.
Sorry, if I may also build on that.
Yeah.
I think this is where also we need to voice out to the world that we as an industry hold the skill set and knowledge to solve these problems. The solution doesn't sit outside our industry. We are, again, I keep saying this, we are part of the solution. We are enabling that solution, but it is through our people and the beauty of our diversity in this industry.
All right. Thank you so much for this perspective. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. But finally, as we wrap up this insightful discussion, let's reflect on this forum itself, considering the importance of collaboration and dialogue in our industry. What is the impressions of the annual GPCA Forum this year? Why are gatherings like these important for the industry's advancement?
I think I want to be very direct with my answer, and I say I love it. Because I think these are the spaces where people feel comfortable to come together and talk. There's no space of red oceans, more of blue oceans, and amazing discussions happen. And I want to thank GPCA for really giving us the platform to have these, in-depth, interesting insights and discussions along these 4 days. And you build relationships, because I believe relationships, we're at the end of the day people. And you build those relationships and you come together towards the solution. So yeah, it's been brilliant. And I want to, thank you all for this.
Thank you so much. And we'd like to thank you, Mais, for this valuable discussion, for sharing your expertise. This has been such a valuable discussion. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in into this episode of the GPCA podcast. Until next time.